Hey everybody, this is Brian.
And this is Josh.
Welcome to the podcast for Curiosity Continuum.
Curiosity Continuum is an industry-innovating, non-traditional company passionate about growing wisdom in the next generation.
We are the essential bridge between the analog and digital worlds by building collaborative communities that unleash the power of adaptive expertise and innovation needed to thrive in the 21st century.
We combine and mix essential elements needed to empower people to succeed in new ways, not possible outside of a creative, thoughtful, diverse community of fellow curious people.
Follow us on your favorite podcast app to receive notifications of new content. If you like what you hear and want to dive deeper, visit us at curiositycontinuum.com. Thanks for tuning in. Let's start the conversation. Folks, I hit the button. I didn't realize I hit the button. And so we're just going to start now. Hey, everybody. How you doing?
Yeah, we are. Hey, we're here. Yay.
All right. We were talking kind of about specializing. I'll tell you this, Josh, from a previous, I'm referencing a couple of conversations ago. One of the things I talked about on the episode where Esther Sheen McIntosh had interviewed me about my trip to Korea.
Yes. Yep.
And there's this idea of adaptability. Now, for those who have listened to this podcast for any period of time, adaptivity is something that Josh and I just hit home because it really is important that you know how to adapt and you move forward. And I will say this. There is something to be said about saying, this is what I do and I do not these other things. And that means that I'm not constantly adapting to try to meet all aspects and facets of it. Now, for me, it was like I carried the anxiety about it that what I did wasn't enough. And so I was trying to find every possible way for me to be validated and accepted through my work product or what I did. Because Josh knows me, I work a lot, I work hard, I like to achieve things. But where it turns anxious is when I will not be accepted. I will not have as much opportunity if I don't know all the things. As I get older, you realize you can't know all the things. And it's not bad that you don't. For a long time, though, I took it as a very personal affront if I didn't know it. But that was on me to say, well, hey, I need to take this on. When we talked about people being able to be happy based on what they do or what they don't know, do you feel like, well, let me ask you this. Do you have fears about specializing at something in your life now? Because you've also adapted a lot over the years. Is there any anxiety driving your desire to adapt?
No, the only... I'll be honest, I haven't really thought of it in that way before, but I also, the way I approach everything is I can do it, right? I can figure out how to do it. I can maybe do it. Might not be the best, but I get it done. But the way I've been trying to, like you were saying, I've been trying to kind of look at my life is maybe I can't do it, or maybe I shouldn't do it. Just because I can do it, maybe I shouldn't do it. Maybe I should start, contracting out certain parts of my life. So the car repair that I used to do on my own, maybe I'll just go to a garage now, have them do it. And I'm at the point in life where I'm not rich, but I'm not super poor anymore. And I think that helps to kind of be I think because when I was younger and, starting out in life, I had to adapt. It was a necessity to adapt. Now the adaptation is almost like a novelty in a way that I don't always have to do it. And so I look at when I got my house repaired, I knew how to do most of the house repairs, but I just didn't want to do them. I didn't want to be on a ladder. I didn't want to be doing drywall and painting and all that stuff that I've done before. I just don't want to do it again if I didn't have to. So I think I know it sounds almost it's almost like a lazy part of yourself, but it's not. It's realizing that time is what you're getting back when you do stuff like that. And as you get older, I think that you realize that the time is important. It's more important. I mean, we've talked about this before too, and we hammer this home a lot. It is the most important currency you have because everybody has the same amount of time every day. It doesn't matter how rich you are or how poor you are. However, if, rich people can sometimes pay a lot more people to do the stuff for them so they get their time back. Now, I'm not saying that money is everything because there's things you can do that are absolutely free that you can free up time by just compartmentalizing certain things and doing the important things and then saying, okay, I got to do this in this order. And I still want to have free time because I've always scheduled like free time for myself. And I think that people think that's weird sometimes. And they're like, what do you mean? What are you doing Thursday? And I'm like, well, I actually have like 2 hours scheduled to just sit in my room, you know? And they're like, well, that's weird. And I'm like, well, no, I need that for my own sanity because that's like my
Sure.
time. And so, and even it doesn't mean that I'm like so rigid I can't change that. It just means that having that there, I'm looking forward to it. It's almost like if you're working all week and you're working for the weekend, you know, you're like thinking like, oh, I'm going to do this on the weekend. And then the weekend comes and you're not doing any of that stuff you were thinking of, but you still enjoy it, having the time. I think that's what's important.
An active thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I struggle at resting actively. I always feel like it's inaction when it's something like that, you know? Now, I want to back up. I know I said that then. I'm going to just back up for just a second because here's the thought going through my head. Let's talk about the history of the United States for a minute, and you talk about what was happening after the Great Depression. You know, you had a lot of people gearing up, right? Like, you know, getting ready for World War II, one of the worst economic disasters of a century, or for that century, absolutely. People had to figure out what they didn't know how to do in order to survive, right? And so they made themselves adaptable in order to continue on life. But then there's the people who, like, now let's fast forward to the now times. We have the ability now, because of all the different ways that the society has been built up, to be able to not have to generalize so much. You can kind of specialize.
Yeah.
But then the problem comes when you've specialized so much and you haven't kept your knowledge current, that now you're at the danger of becoming obsolete. Now, I don't know what I'm trying to say necessarily, Josh. I just feel this tension of how do you specialize and how do you stay viable in that particular thing? Like, I think about a plumber. Like, if you're a plumber, for example, you're going to be needed, right? But there's like plumbing technologies, like they used to use like glass pipes and stuff like that, right? So there's other things that they're learning about plumbing. I don't know. I'm probably answering my own question. You can specialize in the knowledge you know, but I don't. Tell me about the tension. I feel tension in that comment when I say that.
It's almost like think about this. So when my dad was younger and they were talking about computers, they said computers are going to be great because when you get a computer at your work, you're only going to have to work a couple hours a day. And then you're going to have like 6 or 7 hours of free time, extra free time. Because the amount of work you do, a computer can do in like 45 minutes for a whole 8-hour day. But what the reality of what happened was the people that owned the business said, wow, I only need one person to do the work of 5 people now.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So they put that person to work for 8 hours and got rid of 4 others. What did those people do? They were forced to adapt because otherwise they wouldn't have had a job. Now, fast forward to today's time. What we're looking at now in today's society is this AI is what this is going to happen. Oh, you're going to have a lot of free time, outright, because you're not going to have a friggin' job, you know. But I think it's already hitting certain industries, and lo and behold, it's hitting white collar workers first. Because their jobs have been so specialized where AI can learn it and do like accounting. And I mean, I'm sure we could feed AI all the CC podcasts and have it, you know, crap out a whole bunch of podcasts for CC. And it would probably sound like we were doing it because it knows our cadences of things, of how we talk and what we would say. Not that it would be good content, but it would be content.
But it would be produced, yeah.
And it's starting to kind of like affect creative fields and white collar workers. And you're actually seeing a lot of the pushback in the creative field industry, especially where if they are unionized, they're trying to push back on AI. So the biggest one right now in the gaming industry is artists. They're saying, hey, you train that AI on my art. And now you're saying that it does its own art, but it's really doing something that's based off my work. So that's stealing because they're not quite there yet with the technology. It doesn't think for itself yet. So
right.
Now
You have to feed it.
You have to feed it something. And so like they'll hook it up to the internet and say, oh, it's just learning. but it's machine learning or, AI learning and all that, right? So that's the thing of our time. But those people are so specialized too, because if you're an artist, that's what you do, right? So if you all of a sudden couldn't do art anymore, what would you do? There's got to be another skill or another thing that you want to do. And so I think really it's going to be up to the individual to be, am I at the point where I can retire, or do I have to figure something out? Now, I do think it behooves society and maybe even behooves the government. And I'm not really a big government guy, but certain programs, like if AI is going to come in and take and wipe an entire industry out, let's say there's 1 million people that do this, don't we have a responsibility to kind of offer some kind of training or path to skills, especially for people that are maybe not 25 anymore. Maybe they're 45 and they've been a long time since they've been in school, or a long time since they've learned something new and they're kind of scared about it. And so that's maybe the way to think about it.
You bring up a really interesting dynamic with this in terms of job loss or, finding a different place to work. Warren Buffett in an interview one time said that the market is what it is, especially when you talk about business success and you talk about economic success. He
Right.
said the world just values different things, but they may not even be that valuable. Like if you're an educator, for example, in the public school system, you are highly valuable as an individual, and your skill set's very needed. But that setting and that particular thing doesn't have the economic ties to it, right? So sometimes people pursue it because they feel like that's a calling for them, and they're very happy to be where they are, right? And people have the option, especially in the United States, to be able to choose those kind of adventures that they go on. But you touched on something really important, because I really appreciate hand-drawn art. It was actually one of the reasons why we were talking about old TV shows and stuff recently in a group. And one of the guys said, hey, I know you like Transformers. Why, which ones, do you like or whatever like that? And I said, well, give me 3 that I haven't watched. And one of them he recommended was Beast Wars, which came out in the 90s. Now, you know why I avoided that show? Part of it was our friend Eric liked it, and I liked Eric. He's like, I kind of was beyond my Transformers phase at that time.
Yeah.
I love you, Eric. But the other part of it was that I did not like where the computer graphics were at the time. I liked the hand-drawn animation, right? And I understand it was kind of meant to be, it's robots in disguise. So, of course, you want to use computer something to draw the next series. But I didn't connect with it as much. It didn't feel as organic to me. To this day, I really appreciate where, computer-generated graphics or digital graphics have come. But I really love hand-drawn art. It really it's a different thing altogether, right? So it's like digital art has taken a different space than analog art. And obviously the digital artists of today couldn't have come without the analog, predecessors and things. Here's where I go. When your economics are tied to something where you need to do something, I think part of the problem that's happened with people, especially in the white collar arena, is that, because I have a white collar job, I'm okay. I'm not concerned about obsolescence because, I have the quote better job.
It's
The problem
complacency.
is that
yeah.
it's complacency, and some folks, honestly, whoever went into a white collar job in our generation should never have gone, because they really were going to be the best auto mechanic, welder, engineer, whatever it was, because
Yeah.
that was what they were good at. But we were told that wasn't valuable, so we chose something of a different adventure, which usually involved 4 years of college or more, to go choose something to go do that wasn't even tied to our major in the first place, because that's what you, quote, had to do. The problem is that sometimes that specialization, you assumed you were on some Shangri-La island where you were untouchable. The problem is that you made it so easy for yourself and so repeatable that here comes the machine to be able to replace you. And honestly, the best toolkit you have is your mind to be able to adapt and create the new system.
Yeah. I mean, the best thing that humans have to combat AI is being human. And I think we really need to understand that AI, at least, they're never going to be human. They may be something else, but they're not going to be human. We have to stop thinking of them like personification of a human. Like, you stop thinking of them like your dog that you think knows you, and and thinks that like it loves you like you love it. No, it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't understand some of those concepts.
No.
But that's what I would think AI would be. Like, eventually it's going to be its own thing. And we're either going to use it or not, or we're going to wall it off, or we're going to do something. And it might be a whole nother beast at that point, but we're not there yet with it. But I do think that people need to get into the mindset of, you're not safe at what you're doing ever. So maybe you should it's not even a backup plan, but just be aware that could happen. And so instead of like crashing like an entire world economy and having like just like a few people have all the money, because that there's people out there thinking about that. Like, oh, if we can take all the jobs, we'll make all the money. Well, then it would be a bad thing for everybody. But I think if we can use it more like a tool, things like that, and it would be interesting to pose the question to AI. Well, what are humans supposed to do now that you took their jobs? I would love to ask AI the question.
Folks, type that in. Can't talk this time.
I know, but wouldn't that be an interesting conversation? And then like every 3 months, ask AI that same question and see how it evolves it. Because they're changing AI so rapidly.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting.
I think that's an interesting question. I might actually do that and put the result in the show notes.
Let's do that, man. I think what I'll leave with is based on your skill sets, what is essentially human in anything you do for economic machinations? If you had to change, if that job wasn't available anymore, how would you like to use the talents that you have? Because there is something for that, right? It's not like you're not able to do anything, but it's really going to require you to reframe the skill set into something remarkable for the next year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever it may be. But are you ready?
That's right. I think we put a comma here, huh, Brian?
Until next time, this is Brian.
And this is Josh.
For Curiosity Continuum.